start this session with a meditation, of course, of a Vipassana practice of emptiness. But here in the text, we've seen that it's recommended that we start by doing this investigation by focusing on me, the person. Is there this independent me here that seems to be here or not? So we're going to do that practice, and then in the text it explains a little bit more about that. We'll have a look at that after the meditation. So let's do that practice first. Setting the body into a state of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance. And using the out-breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. Allowing the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. Not trying to control or regulate the breath in any way. Simply allowing it to flow naturally and effortlessly. And setting the mind in a state of ease and relaxation. Simply allowing the mind to come to rest in the present moment. And simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. Maintaining a flow of mindfulness on the rhythm of the breath. Now, do you have a sense that there is a me here who is meditating? A me who is relaxing the body? and a me who's focusing the mind on the breath. A me that seems to exist from its own side and doesn't seem to depend upon anything else to exist. Do you have this experience? And just rest in that experience of being me, the meditator. Now, can the me who's meditating here be found anywhere? So first, thoroughly search the body and look for the me who's meditating. Is the meditator to be found somewhere inside the head? Is the brain, is that the me who's meditating here? Or is the brain simply something which me, the meditator, is using? Is the whole is the whole body itself? Is that the me who's meditating here? Or is the whole body itself simply something which me, the meditator, is trying to relax? Can the me who's meditating here be found anywhere within the mind? So again, search thoroughly every part of the mind and look for the me who's meditating. is the whole mind itself? Is that the me who's meditating here? Or is the whole mind itself merely something that me, the meditator, is using to focus on the breath? Is the combination of the body and the mind, is that the me who's meditating here? Or is the combination of the body and the mind simply two things which me, the meditator, is trying to train? Trying to relax. Yet, other than the body and the mind, what else is there here? If there's nothing more than the body and the mind here, then where is the me who is relaxing the body and focusing the mind on the breath? Where is me, the meditator? If you can't find the me who's meditating here, then simply rest in the experience of not finding. so we can bring the meditation to a close. Any questions about the meditation before we go back to the text?
Yeah, I would like to share something and ask about it.
Sure.
When you ask the questions, who is this who meditates, or where is the me, automatically I go into a space I don't find, and then I go into a space which is so silent and so pleasant. It's not even pleasant. It's the experience. I don't know. I know it, but I don't know if this is the. I don't know what experience it is. Another thing that I just found out now, my knee has a pain. So I had I saw the thought that if there's no me, there's no pain. So I looked for the me, no me, no pain. No me, no pain. The pain only started when the thought came. So.
Okay. Yeah. There's a saying, but okay. I mean, I think when you mean pain, you mean suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So there's a saying that says that pain or sensation is mandatory, suffering is optional. So if we have if we've got something wrong with the knee, you'll get sensations. That will happen. But whether that turns into suffering is up to you.
Yeah, not even pain.
Well, yeah, pain, but sensation. But the saying pain is mandatory, meaning sensations is mandatory, suffering is optional. If you have grasping, suffering is mandatory. If you have no grasping, there's no suffering. There's sensations, but there's no suffering. So that's one point. The other point is, and that's something we'll look at tomorrow morning session in more detail, is this idea of not finding. Just a brief answer on that, and we'll cover it in more detail tomorrow, is not finding is an experience of emptiness. But actually it's more than not finding, it's seeing that it's not findable. Because if we do the search, but we don't do a thorough search, and maybe we don't find it in one place, that not finding doesn't translate into emptiness. We have to search everywhere, and then we come to see it's nowhere to be found. Then if you get to that point, then you rest in that experience. That experience is a very open, spacious experience, and that is a experience of emptiness. But it's very easy to confuse merely a spacious, quiet, peaceful experience as an experience of emptiness. Because they look very similar.
So emptiness, it also comes and goes, like the experience is
Sure. That's what we said before, the go, yum, tok. The numb taste, if we're not focused, it'll be there, gone. They're gone. They're gone. So we want to stabilise that. But more I'll come tomorrow morning. So, yeah.
When I was looking for it, I saw something. It's like myself, like in a very like miniature, like a view of myself in the. You know what I mean?
A picture of yourself.
It's like picture in statue. Yeah. But here.
Right. But then that was just a picture of you. It wasn't you. It's like when.
Visualization of
Yeah.
a miniature in.
Yeah. But like, for example, it was before someone talked about looking in the mirror in the morning. Do you appear in the mirror?
It's not.
Are you in the mirror?
No.
There's a reflection of you in the mirror. Isn't there?
Yeah.
Similarly, in this practice, where often people go astray is they have some image of themselves and they go, "Oh, there's me." That'd be like saying, "Look, there's me in the mirror." It's just a reflection of you. It's just an image. So we're looking for you, not an image of you. So we have to be careful there. But more tomorrow morning again.
When I searched for me, I felt something here, some kind of sensation, not in the legs, not in the head, something here. I said, oh, I didn't expect to find a me. Then I looked at it and looked at it. And then after a while, I said, it's just tension. It is just tension. Tension in the body.
Tension.
Yeah, tension in the body, tension in the mind. And there was a kind of disentanglement of the feeling of the me from the feeling of the tension.
Wasn't it you who's experiencing tension? Weren't you experiencing the tension?
It's very interesting because there was a feeling of someone looking at the tension, and then I started to look at that.
Perfect. Because if you're experiencing something, it's not you.
Yeah, and that was a totally different experience. Of
Exactly.
So at the tension.
So again, if you have that sort of experience, and it's often people go, oh, that's me. But then, hang on, but who's experiencing that? Look for that.
Yeah.
Look for the me who's experiencing that, because that's just an experience. It's just a sensation. You are experiencing sensation, so look for that you. Okay, let's go back to the text, and we'll unpack this meditation we did. It comes later, a little bit at the bottom of the page, but we'll unpack that in more detail tomorrow morning. But now I want to give a little bit of a presentation for the rest of this session on terms of this idea of emptiness and dependent arising, because that's what's talked about here. So we're in the middle of page 9. The sentence that says, for that reason. So it says, for that reason, I will first explain with oral instructions the way in which the object of negation appears and the way in which it is apprehended. Just before that, we see this word truly existent. So maybe a little bit of terminology here. Now we are grasping onto me as existing independently. Independent me, independent world. But in the text, there are a couple of different terms used to describe that. The first one, that's probably most common, is this word inherent existence. And inherent existence has the idea of things being self-existent, that the world is made up of many separate, discrete things, each one having its own unique entity, identity. So that's what it means by inherent existence. Existing from its own side has the idea that things are there, existing from their own side, already pre-existing, and we're just coming along to confirm their existence. So existing from its own side means existing there without the need of an observer. And the third one is true existence, and that's the one we see mentioned here in the text. True existence. The word true generally means something is true if it doesn't deceive us. Now things appear to exist completely independent of us. If that's really how they existed, they would be true. Meaning the way in which they appear and the way in which they exist matches. So true existence means existing in the same way in which it appears. So all of those three terms are describing the same thing from a slightly different perspective. So again, inherent existence is the idea of things being self-existent, everything having its own unique identity. Existing from its own side, again, without the need of an observer. True existence meaning existing in the same way in which it appears. But of course, the assertion here is that things do not inherently exist. They do not exist from their own side. They do not truly exist. And it says here then in that next paragraph, so we are to investigate this me that seems to be here. And it says, without wavering in the slightest from the earlier state of meditative equipoise, and that means shamatha. Again, single-pointedly equipoised in the concentration of shamatha. So the basis of vipassana is shamatha. So whatever we can manage in terms of having a very calm, clear, focused mind as a beginning point, then we investigate. And it says we do that just as, for example, a small fish darts through a lake filled with clear water without disturbing the water. Likewise, use a subtle awareness to intelligently investigate the nature of the person, the I, who is the meditator. So when we do this investigation, we are to use a very subtle level of mind, meaning not to be too agitated and disturb the balance of the mind, to really, in a very, very subtle, calm, very clear way, just investigate. And it says here, that is, investigate the way in which the person appears to the mind, the way in which the person is apprehended by the mind, and the way in which the person actually exists. And so that's what we did at the beginning of the meditation. We said, well, there seems to be a meditator here, so I said, do you have that experience of being me, the meditator? So look at how that me is appearing, and then look at how we're apprehending. So this me that's meditating really seems to be existing here from its own side, and we grasp onto that. We apprehend it that way. Yes, there is a me here meditating, existing from its own side, existing objectively. But then it says to investigate and see how that me actually exists. And it says, if we do that, it says, when investigated in this way, the way in which things actually exist is that all phenomena, the being, the I, the person, and so forth, are a mere name, merely imputed by conception and merely labelled like a snake onto a striped rope or a human onto a can or pile of wood. So what it's saying is that when we investigate this supposed independent me that seems to be here, we'll come to realise that there's no independent me here. In fact, the me that's here is the dependent me. And so that's what I'd like to unpack a little bit more. Here it talks about mere label, mere name, and so forth. So the reasoning here then is that things are empty of inherent existence. In other words, things are not inherently existent, not independently existent. Why? Because they are dependently existent. And here the term we see in the text is dependent arising. Arising means coming into existence. So what we're saying is that things are not independently existent because they are dependently existent. They come into existence dependently. So this term here, empty of inherent existence, this is emptiness. Or in Sanskrit, shunyata. So emptiness is not saying nothing really exists. Emptiness is saying things are empty of, or they lack, independent existence. They're not independently existent. Why? Because they're dependently existent. So what we see is that emptiness and dependent arising are two sides of a coin. Which means that if we can understand what do we mean by things existing dependently,